Hey there, I'm Verity Songon and this is the Confident CEO podcast, the show that takes you behind the scenes of starting and running your small or not so small business. We will cut through the misinformation and bad advice about starting and running a business and give you actionable tips and advice that you can implement to grow, scale and achieve your business goals. Let's dive in. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of the Confident CEO podcast. And I want to start off this episode by saying a huge thank you. Just thank you to all of you, our lovely listeners to this podcast, because last week I got some really, really exciting news. I looked at the Chartable rankings, and Chartable is something, it just collates all of the podcast rankings from across the board. And I had a look at the rankings and we charted at number 24 in the entrepreneurship Apple Podcast charts in Ireland and number 51 in the UK entrepreneurship Apple Podcast charts as well, which is incredible for a couple of reasons. First of all, those are the highest rankings that we have got in any charts, which is amazing. And second of all, because Ireland is another new country to add to our list of places where we've now charted with this podcast, which is just so exciting, like really, really exciting. So we can add Ireland in. So we've got Ireland, the UK, Sweden, Switzerland, Latvia. I feel I forgot, and South Africa, where we have all charted, but nowhere has been as high as in Ireland and the United Kingdom last week for the Apple Podcast Entrepreneurship charts. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who listens to the show and everyone who, contacts me and just it says how much they enjoy the show or how much the episodes have, benefited them, either as small business owners or their small business. However the show impacts you or however the guests that we get on, however that information and that advice and those actionable tips affects you and your business. I love it when people get in contact with me and tell me how much they're enjoying the show. So if you are enjoying the show, please continue to get in contact. Either leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That's great because it pushes it out to the algorithm that, the podcast is worth listening to, and then it pushes it out to more people and all these kind of things. And also people finding the podcast will want to listen to it, hopefully, because it's got good reviews. But then, also feel free to DM me on Instagram at Verity Songon. I love having conversations in the DMs with people about the podcast and how they've enjoyed it. And it's an amazing way to start 2023 as well, because, the podcast, it started in April of last year, is very much kind of something to do on maternity leave, but also, I don't know, really, it was a bit of like a women of prayer type thing. Just felt like making a podcast. So it didn't really have that much strategy to it. I'm not gonna lie. But as it's gone on, I feel like the podcast it's building momentum. And I just really appreciate you guys as the listeners who turn up, who show up to listen to the podcast. It's really, really humbling to know that we've got subscribers, that we've got repeat listeners. Really, really humbling. And I really appreciate every single one of you who, even if you've only ever listened to one episode or this is the first episode that you've listened to on the podcast, I really, really appreciate you. So thank you very much for your support. It's really lovely, like I said, and it's very humbling. But yeah, so for something that kind of started out in April of last year, not really knowing where I was going to go with it, again, I'm just really grateful for all of the amazing guests that we've had on the show over 2022 and the couple of guests, because we've only had a couple of guests so far on for 2023, but we have got some incredible guests lined up for 2023. I'm so excited. I've been recording episodes with people who are proper experts in their fields, and we are covering topics that you've reached out to me and say that you want to have these topics covered, or I've been, really noticing that these are the questions that are coming up. We are covering the topics that you guys want answered and the questions that you want answered. So I've been recording, like I said, with some real experts in their fields over the last couple of weeks. I've just secured another guest who I am so excited about. Like, oh my God, it's just going to be incredible to have her have her on. But yeah, just I'm excited for 2023 and see where the podcast goes in 2023. I really am. But the thing that I want to talk to you about today is finding your confidence as a small business owner. Obviously, the podcast is called The Confident CEO. So I kind of wanted to delve into confidence and what is confidence and how do you find your confidence as a CEO. And for me, I think that confidence in business, it really takes two forms. I think you need to have confidence in your strategy and also confidence in yourself. But I don't think you can have one without the other, because if you have a strategy that you're massively confident in, but you don't have any confidence in yourself, I don't feel like you're necessarily going to show up in the right way to execute that strategy. And equally, you can be, crazily confident in yourself, but if you don't have a strategy or you're not confident in your strategy, you can be showing up, but if you've got no strategy, you are directionless. You're basically just walking without a map. So I think it's really important, as I said, to have both that confidence in yourself and confidence in your strategy and in your plan. And it can be hard to be confident in business. I really get that. Not a day goes by where you don't log on to Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and you see something, a post that somebody puts up and you're like, oh my God, they're absolutely killing it. But I haven't done that. I haven't reached that income level this month. I haven't got that. I haven't got whatever it is. But, we need to remember as well that social media is your highlight reel. Yes, we have behind the scenes, but very rarely are people putting their absolute worst out there. And if they are, there's usually some sort of strategy. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but from what I've seen is people put their very worst out there because then it really highlights when they're at their very best. So it's remembering that social media only tells part of the story. And one of the things that I get asked a lot is, Verity, you love, you're quite happy speaking to people. You stand up, you talk and teach in front of people. You have a podcast. How is it that you have that inner confidence? And the honest answer is strategy and planning and knowing that I've got the information and the answers, and also knowing that people are turning up to listen to me. If they weren't wanting to hear the message that I was giving, people just wouldn't come. So I'm going to give you an example. In a previous job, I worked as clinical skills lead in my local hospital. Fab job. And we ran a project all about sepsis, sepsis awareness. And as part of my role as clinical skills lead, one of the things I did was I ran an audit within the hospital. Don't worry, this isn't going to get all technical and medically, but I ran an audit within the hospital and I came up with God knows how much data. And I then had to present this data and my findings and recommendations to a group of doctors, hospital seniors, hospital officials, like really high people, like people way above my pay grade. And I mean way above my pay grade. And I planned my presentation absolutely to oblivion. And one of the doctors, he's a consultant who had been working on the project with me, he wasn't able to be there on the day to watch my presentation. So he actually spoke to one of his colleagues, gave him the rundown of the background of the project so that he could support me if I felt the need during the presentation, which was incredibly kind, I have to say. And I remember standing there at the beginning of the presentation. Oh my God, all I wanted to do was run away home, drink God knows how much Prosecco and sit in front of Netflix. Like, I did not want to be there because I was so nervous. It was so intimidating for me. And, I'm going to kind of be a bit of a stereotype here in myself. I'm going to be honest, but I was there like, I'm female, I'm 5'2", I'm a nurse. Why are all of these tall male doctors turning up to listen to me? They've got way more intelligence than I do. They're taller than me. They're masculine. And, I was kind of coming up with all of these things in my mind as to why I was not the person to listen to, which, excuse my language, was absolute bollocks. Like, I had put in the research. I knew that my recommendations were evidence-based, that they were backed up by science, that they were what was needed to be told. And that's quite, that's something that you need to be able to tell yourself. You need to be able to say that when you're turning up and you want confidence in yourself, it's knowing that you've got the strategy and you've got the information. And right before the presentation started, and the auditorium was full, it was absolutely, it was packed. like I said, people way above my pay grade, people so much more intelligent than I am, and people with amazing careers and like experts in their fields and all this kind of thing. But then I kind of stopped and I was just scanning the room whilst everyone was simmering down and quietening down. And I kind of thought to myself, well, if they weren't interested in what I had to say, they wouldn't have turned up. If they already knew the results, if they already knew what my recommendations were, if they already knew all the science, and by the way, I was bringing in new practice and new research findings and stuff. If they already knew all of that, or they just didn't want to hear it from me, they wouldn't have turned up. And that's a really, really important thing to remember, is that, if people aren't interested in what you're saying, they just won't listen to you. And that's absolutely fine, because they're not your people anyway. But incidentally, I had about 100 people listening to me. It was an amazing confidence boost. But the point is, when you bring this back to your business, because you might be thinking, Verity, I'm not doing medical audits. What on earth has this got to do with, with my small business? And bear with me, because, if you're putting stuff out on Instagram or whatever, and you're worried, oh my gosh, people aren't going to read this. The people who are interested in your stuff will find you and they will read it. And actually, the people who aren't interested in it, they're not your audience anyway. So the point that I'm making is people are turning up because they're interested in what it is that you have to say. It doesn't matter if that's one person, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever. But that thought that people are turning up to listen to you, I think that should do amazing things for your confidence. Because, say you only have 100 Instagram followers, that's 100 people that you could possibly be talking to. Would you stand in a room and speak to nearly 100 people? Would you stand in a room and speak to nearly 1,000 people? I think sometimes we get so caught up with metrics, but as I said, the people who are turning up, who are liking your posts, who are engaging with you, they want to be there anyway. They want to be talking to you, which I just think is a really, really humbling thought process. So what I want to do to wrap up for this episode is just go through 3 ways that I think that you can boost your confidence as a small business owner. The first one is, whatever you are doing, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's a new product launch, if you're launching an online course, if you are putting out, a series of Instagram posts or LinkedIn posts, whatever, have a plan and have a strategy. Know why you are doing what you are doing. What is your A, your starting point, and what is your B, your ending point, or even your C, D, whatever. My point is make sure you know where you're starting, where you're going, and why you're doing those things. Because if you've got a solid strategy in place, you know where you're going, you know why you're doing it, that's going to give you confidence in yourself and confidence in your strategy as well. The next thing I recommend is study, research, and invest time and money in yourself and your business. And again, you might be thinking, my God, Verity, I don't want to invest time and money. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It doesn't matter. You could spend $21 on a Pinterest course, just example's sake, and completely transform your Pinterest, and that massively takes your business forward. It could be that you spend time watching endless YouTube videos to learn how to do something else in your business, SEO, I don't know. The point is, study, research, ask questions, and gain the answers in a way which is efficient, but also the right answers and the right knowledge. So what I mean by that is not just going on, there are amazing Facebook groups out there, but don't get me wrong, but not just going on a Facebook group and then taking the answer from the first person who is not really sure of the answer themselves. Really being strategic with where you're finding your information. So make sure you study and research, and like I said, really invest your time and money wisely in your study and your research as well. The next thing is keep a journal. We all know that I'm really into journaling. We've got the Confident CEO journal, which you can get 10% off if you sign up using the link in the show notes. So the importance, though, of keeping a journal is that you are able to look back on it from time to time, look back on where you've come in comparison to where you are now. And you will be amazed not only at how much you've grown in confidence, but also how much you've grown as a small business owner. You don't need to write streams and streams and streams every night. You don't have to keep diaries like Virginia Woolf or whatever, but just writing down even just a few sentences of today was really great because of XYZ, just whatever it is, bullet lists, however it works for you, but you're able to then go back over and think, yeah, I've really grown, not just my confidence, because You know, if this happened today, I would not approach that situation in the same way. I know how I would do it, and I would go in so much stronger and with so much more force and determination. But you can see how much you've grown, not just as a person, as I said, but also as a small business owner. And finally, my fourth tip is to take the rough with the smooth. You know, we can't all be confident and radiating these positive vibes all of the time. And you know what? That's absolutely okay. Just, you know, when it's going great, relish it. When it's not going so great, that's absolutely fine as well. We're all allowed to have down days, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up if we're not feeling 100% confident all of the time. So those are my 4 tips. First of all, plan and have a strategy. Second, study and research. Make sure you know what you're talking about and you are confident and you research your strategy. Keep a journal as well, and also take the rough with the smooth. Don't beat yourself up if you are not confident 100% of the time. That's absolutely fine. We're only human. So I hope that this episode about talking about confidence has been helpful to you. I'd love to know how you build up your own confidence as a small business owner. You know, do you keep a journal? Do you have a plan and a strategy? Do you research an awful lot? Have you invested in your self-development and your self-growth, either time or monetary wise? I'd love to know how you have built up your confidence as a small business owner. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment in the box below. And if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you head over to Instagram afterwards, DM me at VeritySongon. I'd love to know how you have worked on your confidence as a small business owner. As ever, I hope you've really enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Confident CEO podcast. Before you go, I would absolutely be overjoyed if you could take just 2 minutes to leave me a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are a great way to tell Apple Podcasts how much you enjoyed the show, and it helps the algorithm to push out the podcast to more people, thereby helping us to help empower even more badass businesswomen to grow their inner CEO and grow to be the confident CEO of their business that they can be. I love to shout you out in your reviews as well. So you never know, you might be hearing your name on the podcast in the next episode. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.